Let me ask you a powerful question right now. What if the biggest thing holding you back in your life isn't your lack of resources, time, talent, or luck, but a belief you've been carrying so long you don't even question it anymore? Because here's the truth. Most people are not trapped by reality. They're trapped by the story they keep telling themselves about what's possible for them. And the most dangerous beliefs aren't the loud ones, the obvious ones, the ones we complain about. The most dangerous beliefs are the quiet ones, the ones that whisper, "This is just how I am," or "This is as far as people like me can go." Most people spend their entire lives trying to change the outside world without ever realizing that the real prison they're living in exists on the inside. They believe their limits are created by circumstances, by money, by education, by background, by the economy, by other people's decisions. But the truth is far more confronting and far more empowering at the same time. The strongest limits in your life are rarely visible, rarely spoken out loud, and rarely questioned. They live as assumptions. They live as quiet beliefs you stopped challenging a long time ago. Beliefs like "this is just how things are," or "people like me don't get that kind of life," or "I should be grateful for what I have and not want more." These beliefs don't shout, they whisper. And because they whisper, they feel reasonable, logical, even responsible. What makes these limits so powerful is that you don't fight them. You don't resist them. You build your identity around them. You call them being realistic, being mature, being practical, and because you accept them, your brain goes to work proving them right. It filters what you see, what you try, what you expect. Opportunities pass by unnoticed. Ideas get dismissed before they're explored. Risks never get taken because the outcome already feels decided, not by reality, but by belief. And over time, that belief hardens into a sense of certainty, and certainty is the strongest force in human behavior. Think about this for a moment. You've probably seen people with fewer skills, fewer resources, fewer advantages achieve things you once wanted for yourself. That's not an accident. That's not luck. That's belief in motion. Because when someone believes something is possible, they act differently. They persist longer. They interpret failure differently. They don't see setbacks as proof that they can't succeed. They see them as feedback. Meanwhile, someone with enormous potential can stay stuck for decades simply because they believe they should play small, stay safe, and avoid disappointment. The invisible nature of these limits is what makes them dangerous. If there were a physical wall in front of you, you'd push against it. You'd look for a way around it. But when the wall exists in your mind, you mistake it for reality itself. You don't try to break through it because you don't even know it's there. And the longer you live with it, the more normal it feels. Your comfort zone becomes your cage, and your habits reinforce the belief that this cage is all there is. The most empowering realization you can have is this: limits are not discovered, they are decided. And anything that was decided can be redecided. The moment you begin to question the beliefs you've been living by, you weaken their grip. The moment you stop asking what's realistic for me and start asking what's actually possible, your mind opens in a way it hasn't in years. Because your life does not expand based on your circumstances. It expands based on the limits you are willing to challenge and the beliefs you are willing to let go of. Every moment of your life is being shaped not by what is happening to you, but by how you are interpreting what is happening to you. Two people can experience the same event and walk away with completely different outcomes, not because the event was different, but because their perception was different. And perception is never neutral. It is shaped by belief. What you believe determines what you notice, what you focus on, and what meaning you attach to every experience. Over time, those meanings don't just influence your emotions, they quietly build the direction of your life. Your brain is a meaning-making machine. It is constantly scanning the world, asking one question over and over again: what does this mean? But the answers it comes up with are not based on truth, they are based on belief. If you believe you are capable, a challenge becomes an invitation to grow. If you believe you are inadequate, that same challenge becomes proof that you're not enough. The situation doesn't change, but the destiny that flows from it does. Because once meaning is assigned, emotion follows, and once emotion kicks in, behavior becomes automatic. This is why belief is far more powerful than willpower. You don't need to force yourself to act when your beliefs are aligned with your goals. Action becomes natural. Effort becomes energizing instead of exhausting. When you believe something is meant for you, you move toward it without hesitation. But when your belief says success is unlikely or undeserved, you sabotage yourself in subtle ways. You hesitate, you procrastinate, you rationalize staying where you are, and you call it being careful when in reality it's belief. Protecting itself. Perception doesn't just shape how you see the future, it reshapes how you see the past. Your beliefs decide which memories you emphasize and which ones you minimize. A single failure can become a defining moment or a temporary lesson depending on the belief lens you're using. Some people use the past as a prison, replaying moments that justify why they shouldn't try again. Others use the same past as fuel, proof that they survived, learned, and became stronger. The difference is not experience, it's belief. Over time, perception becomes destiny through repetition. What you consistently focus on shapes your emotional state. Your emotional state influences the quality of your decisions. And your decisions, made day after day, determine the results you experience in your relationships, your career, your health, and your confidence. Destiny is not something that happens to you in the future. It is something you create moment by moment through the lens you see life through right now. The moment you shift a belief, perception shifts instantly. You start noticing opportunities that were always there but invisible to you before. You interpret obstacles as temporary instead of permanent. You respond with curiosity instead of fear. And that single shift sets off a chain reaction in your behavior, your standards, and your results. Change doesn't begin with changing your environment. It begins with changing the lens through which you experience your world. Whether you realize it or not, you are always teaching people how to treat you, and you are always teaching life what you are willing to accept. Every standard you live by is reflected in what you tolerate, not what you say you want, not what you hope for, but what you allow to continue in your life. The moment you tolerate something, you give it permission to stay. And over time, what was once unacceptable slowly becomes normal, then expected, then defended. That's how standards quietly drift downward without anyone ever consciously deciding to lower them. Most people think their life is a reflection of their goals, but it's not. It's a reflection of their standards. Goals are what you aim for. Standards are what you live by. You might have a goal for extraordinary health, but if you tolerate exhaustion, poor habits, and constant stress, your standard is telling the truth. You might have a goal for an extraordinary relationship, but if you tolerate disrespect, neglect, or emotional distance, that tolerance becomes your real standard. Life doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you demand through consistent action and non-negotiable boundaries. The danger of tolerance is that it's subtle. It rarely shows up all at once. It shows up in small compromises. One excuse, one justification. One time you say it's not that bad, but each time you tolerate something that doesn't align with the life you want, you reinforce a belief about what you deserve, and that belief shapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who expects excellence, fulfillment, or respect. You start seeing yourself as someone who makes do, who settles, who survives instead of thrives. What most people don't realize is that raising your standards doesn't require dramatic action. It starts with a decision that certain things are no longer acceptable in your life, a decision that you will no longer negotiate with habits, relationships, or behaviors that drain your energy and shrink your confidence. The moment you make that decision and back it up with action, your nervous system begins to change. You start showing up differently, you speak differently, you move differently, and the world responds differently. Toleration is often disguised as patience, loyalty, or gratitude, but there is a difference between being grateful and being complacent. Gratitude acknowledges what is good. Complacency excuses what is harmful. When you confuse the two, you stay stuck while convincing yourself you're being mature. But growth requires honesty. It requires looking at your life and asking not, what do I want, but what am I currently tolerating? Because that question reveals your true standards every single time. The moment you stop tolerating less than you are capable of, everything begins to shift. Your choices align with your values. Your energy increases. Your self-respect strengthens. And life starts to meet you at the level of expectation you consistently enforce. Because you don't rise to the level of your hopes or your wishes. You rise to the level of the standards you refuse to compromise on. Every belief you carry began as a story you told yourself to make sense of an experience. At some point in your life, Something happened and your mind created a meaning to protect you, to explain pain, to avoid future disappointment. That story might have served you once, but over time it can quietly turn into a prison if you never question it. Most people live their entire lives loyal to stories they never chose consciously. Stories formed in moments of fear, rejection, or uncertainty. Stories that no longer reflect who they are or what they are capable of. The mind loves familiarity more than truth. A familiar story feels safe, even when it's limiting. So people defend beliefs that hurt them because those beliefs feel known, predictable, and controllable. Questioning a long-held story can feel threatening because it forces you to confront uncertainty. It asks you to consider that maybe the problem isn't the world or other people or circumstances, but an interpretation you've been carrying for years. And that realization can be uncomfortable because it comes with responsibility. If the story isn't true, then change becomes possible, and possibility demands action. Freedom begins the moment you challenge the meaning you've assigned to your past, not by denying what happened, but by choosing a more empowering interpretation. The same event that once meant I'm not good enough can be reinterpreted as I wasn't ready yet. The moment that once meant I always fail can become I learned what doesn't work. When you change the story, you change the emotional charge attached to the memory. And when the emotion changes, your behavior changes automatically. Most people wait for confidence before they question their beliefs, but confidence is the result of questioning them, not the prerequisite. You don't need certainty to take a new step. You need willingness. Willingness to ask better questions. Willingness to entertain a new possibility. Willingness to loosen your grip on an identity that no longer fits. The moment you ask, what else could this mean? You create space for growth, and in that space, new choices become available. Old stories collapse when they are exposed to evidence, but you will never see new evidence if you keep interpreting life through the same lens. That's why growth requires deliberate interruption. You must catch yourself in the moment you default to an old explanation and consciously choose a new one, not because it's comfortable, but because it's empowering. Over time, repetition rewires belief. What once felt force begins to feel natural, and a new identity begins to form, one based on expansion instead of limitation. True freedom is not about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming authorship over its meaning. When you stop letting old stories dictate your future, you step into a level of personal power most people never experience. Because the moment you realize you can change the story, you realize you can change the direction of your life, starting now. Most people believe that change has to be slow, painful, and earned over time, but that belief alone keeps them stuck far longer than necessary. In reality, the greatest changes in human behavior often happen in a moment. Not because circumstances suddenly improve, but because a belief shifts. The moment you truly believe something different, your behavior changes instantly. You don't need motivation. You don't need discipline. You don't need more information. You simply act in alignment with the new belief, because belief is the command center of action. Think about how quickly people change when they associate enough pain or pleasure with a belief. A person who has smoked for years can quit in a single day when the belief changes from this relaxes. Me too, this will destroy my future. The habit didn't change first, the belief did. And once the belief shifted, the behavior followed without effort. That same mechanism applies to confidence, success, relationships, and self-worth. When you believe something is no longer acceptable, you don't negotiate with it, you eliminate it. What holds people back is not a lack of capability, but loyalty to an old belief that feels familiar. They wait for proof before they believe, not realizing that belief comes first and proof follows. When you shift a belief, you start behaving in ways that create new results, and those results reinforce the belief. It's a feedback loop. But the loop only begins when you decide to believe something new about yourself, your potential, or your future. A belief shift doesn't mean pretending or lying to yourself. It means choosing a belief that moves you forward instead of one that keeps you safe but small. It means asking not, is this guaranteed, but is this empowering? Because certainty is not required for growth. Commitment is. The moment you commit to a belief that demands more from you, Your standards rise, your focus sharpens, and your energy changes. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting to be ready. You start acting as the person who already expects a different outcome. What feels like a massive transformation from the outside is often just one decision made with absolute conviction on the inside. A decision that says, this is who I am now, or this is what I will no longer accept, or this is the level I choose to live at. That decision collapses old patterns because it leaves no room for negotiation. And once the decision is made, consistency becomes natural because you are no longer fighting yourself. Your life does not change when you learn something new. It changes when you believe something new strongly enough to act on it. And the moment that belief locks in, your actions, habits, and identity begin to realign automatically. That is the power of belief. Not gradual, not distant, but immediate, decisive, and life-altering.